Climate change is not coming to stop anybody. It's gonna come, it's gonna affect everybody. But what are we doing to counter that?
According to a study published in the journal Nature, scientists depict that human activity started influencing climate in the early 1830s. The study suggests that human society began to industrialize, thus changing the chemistry of the atmosphere by adding carbon dioxide. Scientists therefore name this period as the Industrial Era. In the past 250 years, we have seen increasing changes to our climate due in part to global greenhouse gas emissions, specifically carbon dioxide and methane that trapped the sun's heat in our atmosphere like the glass in the greenhouse. This has therefore led climate change to be a global predicament as time has gradually gone by, because we share the same atmosphere and what happens on one side of the world affects the other side. In Kenya, climate change is the same adage, with measures being taken to revert it. For example, the government of Kenya has gone an extra mile by evicting all human occupancy from areas like the Mau Forest to preserve and protect natural forests and water towers from human encroachment. This, according to Caroline Wambui, a campaigner working with an international NGO that works around social injustice, is a necessary action that has to be taken to revert climate change.
But I do appreciate the fact that there are actions that need to be taken for us to revert. Currently on the global scale, when you're talking about climate change and the rise, about the 2.5 that we are about to get to, and Africa is most affected. So when we're talking about that, we need to be harsh as well in terms of reacting to reverse back the climate change. And that's what a lot of the conversation is lacking. There's a lot of diplomacy, there's a lot of trying to find small gray areas to interact with, but I do recognize that climate change will not stop. Even if we start today, it won't stop, but we can slow the process. And that's what, for me, Mau is about. It's not necessarily that, yes, it's against human rights to just come and, evict them and move them when they claim, they own the land and all that. My understanding is that the water towers are affected throughout the country. And ultimately, it will also get to us here in Nairobi, and then there'll be water rationing and all that. And now resources become less and less, and everybody wants to, engage with that. But now we don't have the facilities to do so. So if we do not, if the government does not react much faster and much harsher, I think the battle is ultimately lost. And that's where the conversation seems to be lacking in terms of when I talk about diplomacy and just trying to find small gray areas where they can just pass it off. I think those are the areas that we need to be very harsh about, because climate change is not coming to stop anybody. It's gonna come, it's gonna affect everybody. But what are we doing to counter that? And that's where now the government needs to be very articulate about their actions and what they want to do. They may evict people, yes, but what's the next step? What are those steps that they're taking to bring back the Mau Forest? Regardless of whether the waters are, the rivers are draining, those are the water towers of this country. If we do not protect them, then we ultimately lose everything down the line. It's a ripple effect.
But what is government of Kenya missing out while evicting people from their homes?
In that regard as well, the government seems to be reacting more than preventing. And that's where the fault comes in. So even when you're moving people at the very last minute from the Mau, even when you are trying to bar families from getting into the forest to cut down trees for their firewood access, even when you're talking about electricity being almost 100% accessible to this country, where is the mark? Like what is the work that they're doing towards that? We may say these flowery things that will look very good within the region, but in terms of the actual people on the ground, are they educated enough to be able to counter these challenges? Because it starts with us. Climate change is ultimately caused by our activities as humans. So how are we countering these processes and these engagements as human beings and working with the people and making them change their perception, making them change their tactics, making them change their form of doing things to help the government realize its vision for the country.
According to scientists, renewable energy is the most effective way to curb climate change. Caroline goes further to explain renewable energy in Kenya as a way out of climate change horrors.
Even if you look at it, we are using renewable energy because our electricity is produced through the hydro process, and we have a lot of geothermal. So basically, we are good when it comes to renewable energy access because we are using water, we are using geothermal, that's the heat from the underground, and we have little tidbits of solar and wind power here and there. There's so much more that we can do as Kenya in terms of just making sure that people have the access to energy, especially in households who usually use the highest percentage of emissions. They actually emit the highest percentage of emissions when it comes to carbon dioxide because we are prevalently using coal, that is makaa, or kerosene and such kind of fuel. So for Kenya, we have a long way to go. Nationally, we are okay, but in terms of the people and the households, we have a long way to go.
But take a chef, for example. He or she uses renewable energy to cook. So how does climate change affect him or her?
Kwa majina naitwa Christopher. Nafanya na Sironi Restaurant, iko Mbagathi Road, ndani ya Riara University. Kuhusu climate, tumekuwa na shida sana. Especially sokoni, vitu zimekuwa bei. But tunajaribu kuadjust kidogo ili customer wetu wasitoroke ama wasiende nje kuhusu bei yetu. Hiyo ndio shida imetuaffect sana kuhusu climate.
However, with the solution of renewable energy, a problem arises. Is renewable energy really accessible to everyone in the country?
It's not accessible, definitely, because just recently we had our census done, and the numbers really are almost about 50 male and female, but we know the most vulnerable groups that are challenged when it comes to access to a lot of the facilities are the women and children. And within our campaign, that's the In Power campaign, we're able to do like a background check on what's the data like, what is the access of energy around Kenya. And we realized that Kenya loses about 56 days in one year without without electricity, sorry. So the whole country combined, it gives us 56 days without power. So that means no people can access their work. People can't work on their laptops. We don't have lighting at homes. Some people can't cook because they use electricity, which is really low, a lower percentage. And ultimately, it's expensive. So I would say no, it's not accessible, and there's a long way to go and a lot of campaigning and capacity developing that needs to be done for people to now shift their perception about access for energy. Yeah.
Globally, government can lead and commit to larger initiatives, but individually, we can all help make a difference by being more efficient with our own energy use. Because evidently, human activity contributes to current climate issues, but human action can be the solution.
We need to act beyond the diplomacy, beyond the governments and states trying to figure out ways. We need to act.